Disney's 50-second animated feature Wreck-It Ralph is all about a guy who doesn't want to be a villain. But hey, being a Disney villain is a pretty sweet gig. In fact, one could argue that the brand is right up there with Disney's successful Princess line, as the Disney villains have plenty of their own merchandise, stage shows, video games, and direct-to-video movies. Most recently, Disney even debuted a villains designer collection featuring several of their most iconic female villains reimagined as fashionistas. So while I have a pretty good feeling Ralph will get his wish and become a hero, at least to some degree, here's my list of top 10 Disney villains to show him there's still plenty of glory to be found on the dark side. We'll start the list off with the Big Bad Wolf, who menaced that adorable trio in Disney's 1933 Oscar-winning animated short Three Little Pigs. And while he might not be huffing and puffing today, the Big Bad Wolf made it onto this list because he helped build the Disney empire. That's right, ironically for a guy who's all about blowing things down, it was the money made off of this incredibly successful silly symphony that helped the studio pay for their first animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In fact, to this day, Three Little Pigs is considered the most successful animated short of all time. It played in theaters for months after its initial release, so long that theater owners took to drawing beards on the poster to show how long they'd been running it. There were several sequels, and the Big Bad Wolf even got his own comic strip, which featured him and his cub, Little Bad Wolf, who also became a very popular character. And that song, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, quickly became a hit single, as well as an anthem of resolve for the American public as they weathered the Great Depression. The song even remains a part of popular culture today, and inspired the title of another popular and lasting work of entertainment, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? In 1985, as the Disney studio struggled to find its way after Walt Disney's tragic death, they released their 25th animated film, The Black Cauldron. Unfortunately, it was yet another failure for the then floundering studio, but part of the reason The Black Cauldron wasn't more successful was that it was deemed too scary by critics and audiences alike. That would be due to this guy, the Horned King. In fact, he was so scary that the studio's newly appointed head of feature films, Jeffrey Katzenberg, delayed the film's release because he was insistent that several scenes be cut, including one where the Horned King kills someone on screen. Okay, I can see taking that one out, but what was left in the film was still plenty scary, including the Horned King's army of the undead. The Black Cauldron might be a failed adaptation of Lloyd Alexander's popular and even darker novels, but anytime an artist tries something new, and Disney animators are artists, it's still worth checking out. Eartha Kitt might be best known for replacing Julie Newmar as Catwoman, as well as her hit singles C'est Si Bon and Santa Baby, but she really hit it out of the park voicing the villainous Yzma in The Emperor's New Groove. Matching Patrick Warburton joke for joke, he voiced her hunky but stupid henchman/boy toy Kronk. Yzma might very well be the funniest Disney villain of them all. In fact, I saw the movie twice in theaters and laughed so hard during the film's final chase sequence, I alarmed my friends. Unfortunately, despite a solid box office gross, The Emperor's New Groove is considered a failure, thanks to the huge budget rung up by several story overhauls during production. That happens sometimes, as it did on Tangled, but the real victim here is that Kitt's performance doesn't get the kudos it so strongly deserves. Thank goodness for this list. While he might not be that scary, there's no denying that Captain Hook is an iconic Disney villain. But when you're fighting a kid, how scary a villain can you really be? And that's what makes Captain Hook such a successful villain. A perfect mix of humor and maliciousness, he's able to be the perfect foil to Peter Pan while not casting too bad a light on Mr. Darling, whom he mirrors as dictated by the original play. And even today, when one thinks of Captain Hook, the Disney version is what springs to mind. He's also featured prominently in Peter Pan's Flight, the ride that, despite being over 50 years old, is still the most popular ride in Fantasyland. All of them. In fact, some would argue the line for Peter Pan's Flight deserves a spot on this list. The Lion King is the most successful 2D animated film of all time, and thanks to its recent 3D re-release, is the second most successful animated film of all time, period, after Toy Story 3. So naturally, Scar rates pretty high on this list, for several reasons. One is that Disney villains rarely kill on screen, but Scar does, and in grand fashion, his ruthless quest for power setting the entire story in motion. Another reason is that Scar has what is arguably one of the best Disney villain songs of all time, Be Prepared, which gets a wickedly atmospheric musical number in the film. Then there's Scar's villainous lineage. Not only is he voiced by the great silver screen villain Jeremy Irons, but he is animated by Disney's current go-to guy for villains, Andres Deja. Deha is responsible, or some might say guilty, for bringing Scar, Gaston, Jafar, and Queen Nerissa to life. But while The Lion King might have been the pinnacle of the Disney Renaissance, The Little Mermaid was the one that started it all, again. And taking its cues from Broadway, The Little Mermaid featured a true diva as its villain, Ursula. Howard Ashman and Alan Menken wrote her the memorable showstopper Poor Unfortunate Souls, which television actress Pat Carroll sang amazingly well for someone who isn't a professional singer. And surprisingly, Carroll wasn't the first or second or third choice to voice Ursula. Joan Collins was Howard Ashman's top pick, while the directors had B. Arthur in mind. When neither choice worked out, finally Broadway legend Elaine Stritch actually got the role, but clashed with Ashman in the recording booth. In desperate need of a replacement and a breath of fresh air, that paved the way for the far more humble Carroll. Ursula was also a change of pace in that while previous female Disney villains were all very elegant, this sea witch wore her ugliness on the outside. But thankfully, she also reveled in it deliciously. Plus, her tentacles make her one of Disney's most visually striking villains as well, landing her headlining gigs in everything from parades to fireworks. And center stage is all Ursula ever wanted, isn't it? A Disney diva who preceded Ursula was Cruella de Vil, and when your life goal is to kill and skin Dalmatian puppies to make a coat, you end up pretty darn high on this list. She also made it onto another villains list, coming in at number 39 of AFI's Top 50 Villains. Only one other Disney villain made the cut, whom we meet shortly. Now, as you might have noticed, a catchy song can be crucial for a Disney villain, but only Cruella de Vil has one song about her. Even more so, it's the only major song in the film, sung by songwriter Roger, who's had it up to here with his wife's former classmate who just won't stop dropping by. And we've all met a Cruella in school or life, haven't we? She is perhaps Disney's most realistic villain, showing the evils of the 1% before the term was popularized by Occupy Wall Street. And besides the song, Cruella de Vil also has that important villainous visual flair, although Disney can't take credit for that. Instead, it was author Dodie Smith who dreamed up Cruella's black and white hair in her original book. But Disney did take Cruella's sense of style to a whole new level with their 1996 live-action film. In that film and its sequel, Fatal Attraction and Dangerous Liaisons, Glenn Close got top billing as the new Cruella de Vil, who had been turned from simply a fashion lover to a fashion designer. Both Close and her costumes landed a spread in Vanity Fair, a perfect fit considering the fashion industry's love-hate relationship with animal fur. Now, it might surprise you to see Gaston so high up on this list, but hear me out. While Ursula is notable for wearing her ugliness on the outside, Gaston is notable for hiding his beneath his dashing appearance. In fact, Gaston is the only Disney villain to successfully pass himself off as a hero for most of the story, until revealing his true dark colors at the end. In that way, like Cruella de Vil, Gaston is also something of a real-world villain, the man who won't accept that no means no. Furthermore, Gaston's contrast to the Beast, a monster on the inside versus one on the outside, is just one example of the sophisticated storytelling that led to Beauty and the Beast becoming the first animated film to be nominated for the Best Picture Oscar. It's also worth noting that Gaston was one of Hugh Jackman's first roles, where he played the dashing villain when the stage adaptation came to Australia. But if you think Gaston is popular now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom has just expanded its Fantasyland, and now you can grab a frozen apple drink at a life-size replica of Gaston's Tavern. You can also pose for a photo in front of his portrait, his bronze fountain, or even Gaston himself. You can also get a t-shirt or one of 2 souvenir glasses. The only question that's left is, can we all sing his song together in the tavern? Snow White might have been the one that started it all for the Disney Princess line, but it's the Evil Queen who started the Disney Villains line. She is the other villain to make AFI's list, even cracking their top 10 out of 50. The Evil Queen personifies one of the most common evils, jealousy, and highlights the sad competition women often find themselves in, fighting against the passage of time and each other. However, if only the Evil Queen had known that in time she would surpass Snow White in terms of popularity with audiences. Because of what she represents, many women can empathize with this still beautiful and elegant villain, who some could argue is driven to madness by society's cruel favoritism of youth. She is also the star of one of the film's greatest scenes, where she transforms herself into an old crone. But perhaps the reason she's not number 1 on this list is that Disney's version of the Evil Queen is no longer the most famous. That honor goes to Charlize Theron, who wowed audiences and critics alike with her depiction of the villain in Universal's Snow White and the Huntsman, where audiences more than ever before rooted for her over Snow White. Disney's greatest villain, Maleficent. The most obvious reason is that her dragon form is the de facto mascot for the Disney villain line, and she often takes the lead amongst her fellow villains in everything from stage shows to video games. Also of note is that Maleficent gets more screen time than Princess Aurora herself in Sleeping Beauty, unusual for a villain. Both women are animated by Mark Davis, who was famous for animating Disney's most popular leading ladies, including Cinderella, Tinkerbell, and Cruella de Vil. Maleficent is also the crowning achievement of frequent Disney voiceover actress Eleanor Audley. In addition to Maleficent, Audley also voiced Cinderella's Lady Tremaine and the Haunted Mansion's Madame Leota. Maleficent is also one half of perhaps Disney Animation's greatest fight sequence, that between Prince Philip and her dragon form. But what's going to really send Maleficent over the top is that in 2014, she will get her very own live-action film. Based on their success with Tim Burton's reimagining of Alice in Wonderland, Disney has decided to do the same for Sleeping Beauty, but this time told from Maleficent's perspective. Who will play her? None other than Angelina Jolie. See, even Hollywood's hottest female star would rather play a Disney villain than a Disney princess. And that's my top 10 list of Disney villains. Be sure to share your own lists below, as well as if you agree Ralph might be making a mistake by giving up his Disney villain status. I'm Grace Randolph, and this has been a Movie Bite. You can watch more right now.